Hey everyone, thank you so much for tuning in to Hardwig Soft Life, the podcast. I want to let you know that this podcast is brought to you by Black Stock Footage. Black Stock Footage is a stock video platform and production agency that's all about real, intentional Black representation. If you're a creator or brand looking for visuals that actually reflect our people, our energy, and our stories, this is it. They've got a beautiful library of high quality clips, and they're building something that really centers us. Use my code SOFTLIFE10 for 10% off a year subscription. And big thanks to Black Stock Footage for supporting Hardwig Soft Life and showing love to creators like me. Hey everybody, what's going on? It's your girl, Melissa L. Atkinson, and in the words of great LL Cool J, do not call it a comeback. This is season 2, episode 1 of Hardwig Soft Life, the podcast. If you've been rocking with me for a minute, I want to say thank you. It means a lot to me. I know that I kind of went quiet for some time and we didn't know what was going on with the podcast. And if you're new here, welcome. And thank you so much for joining me. So if you guys are new here, I just want to do a quick little reintroduction of who I am, because it's crazy to think that everybody who is watching this knows who I am already, right? So like I said, my name is Melissa. I am an Afro-Latina, first-gen American. Both of my parents are from Honduras. They each have really cool stories of how they ended up in America. And I'm sure we'll get into that one day. My dad came like on a Chiquito banana boat. I am 33 at the time of the recording of this podcast, but I'm actually going to be 34 by the time this is released. I am a lot of things, and I feel like I've lived a lot of different lives, just like everybody, right? Like, I mean, everybody has their own unique path and trajectory of their lives, but I'm just deciding to share mine on Hardwig Soft Life, the podcast. If we're going by titles, though, I could tell you that I'm a realtor, that I'm a veteran of the Army, go Army, that I'm a felon, which is a pretty interesting, juxtaposition to be like, oh, I'm a felon, but also I'm a veteran. And if you didn't hear the first few episodes of my podcast, I definitely want to advise you to go back so that way you can hear all of my business in all of its glory. But yeah, I am a wife. I'm a sister and I'm a daughter. So if we're going off of titles, that's kind of who I am. I know that I mentioned already, like, hey, I went silent, right? And so for those of you guys who have been rocking with me, you know that we had 3 episodes of Hardwig Soft Life, and then out of nowhere, there were no episodes. And there were a lot of people asking me, like, hey, what direction is your podcast going in? I'd love to be a part of it. There were other people saying, hey, Melissa, when is the next episode coming? And I had no real answer. I kind of just abandoned doing the podcast. Kind of like, I feel like I abandoned doing a lot of things in life, if I'm 100% honest. And it's not because of lack of care. It's not because I don't care about what I'm doing. I feel like this is a great project. I feel like this is my heart on a mic, just like I said in the first few episodes. But I am really learning in real time. And so sometimes I don't want to say we, I don't want to speak in general terms. I want to speak as myself. But sometimes I will be really excited about doing something, and I put all of my all actually into doing this project or whatever it is that I'm really fixated on at the moment. And I decide, like, okay, well, I'm going to do everything by myself. And that is something that I've done my whole entire life. And a lot of it does come from upbringing and just, learned habits of like, okay, well, I can just do everything by myself and I don't need anyone's help, and I'm going to save money and just all the things. And honestly, like, no one is giving you a badge of honor for doing everything by yourself. Like, you're not getting an award for struggling more than what you need to. And it's not because I want to have an award for struggling more than what I need to. A lot of it is pride. And I am learning in real time that it can be a good trait, but pride can toe the line between pride and control, and you can't control everything in life. And so I say all this to say that I started this podcast, very much like with $1 and a dream. And I was like, okay, I'm going to set up my website. I'm going to set up my photo shoot. I'm going to figure out how I'm supposed to distribute my podcast on different streaming networks. I'm going to buy a camera. I'm going to figure out how to edit it. And that's absolutely crazy. Like, you can't be a one-man show. Like, you can, but it doesn't mean that you should. And so that's something that I'm learning in real time as well, is just because you can do something, it doesn't mean that you should do it all the time. And so started the podcast. I got my camera. I started filming. I started setting up like things that I wanted to talk about that I thought would be relevant, and that other people would resonate with. And when it came time to have to edit these things and have to put it out and have a strict deadline for myself, I was failing. Why? Because you can't do everything at one time. There's no way that I can run a real estate business and sell people homes, be a wife, a present wife, have a social life, and then try to be like the one producer of my podcast. Like, that's crazy. And so it would be Wednesday, which is the day that it would come out every 2 weeks. And it'd be 5 o'clock in the afternoon on that Wednesday. And the episode is supposed to drop at 7 p.m. And I'm still editing. And not only am I still editing, my husband's like, hey, we got to get somewhere by 6:30. And I'm like in the car trying to edit on my phone. It's insane. And although I can do these things, it just wasn't hitting its fullest potential, right? I was doing something that I normally do in life. Like, okay, I'm doing everything by myself and it comes out okay, but it's not reaching its fullest potential. And then I just decide to give it up because I'm burnt out, because I'm tired, because I feel like, okay, well, it didn't come out the way it was supposed to come out. It's not perfect. And now I just don't have faith in this project anymore. So I was starting to actually do that. Like, I honestly was like, okay, I'm just going to abandon my podcast. Like, I don't know what I was thinking, like why I thought I could put out a podcast. I don't know why I thought people would like this podcast, which is crazy. It's honestly, it doesn't make any sense to just give up so easily. But when I tell you that my give up game is so strong, like it really is. It is and it's not. Like, it's kind of an oxymoron in and of itself. Like, I'm very persistent, but then I'm also real quick to be like, okay, well, that's not working out, so I'm not going to do it. And that's kind of where I was with my podcast. I was like, okay, well, I'm half-assing everything in my life to include half-assing every aspect of this podcast. But I'm not blind and numbers don't lie. And so I was looking at my numbers. I was seeing the cities and the territories and the different countries even where Hardwick Soft Life was being listened to. And I'm like, well, if I was able to accomplish as much as I accomplished with, I wouldn't say very little effort because it was a lot of effort, but, not fully applying myself in each avenue that you need to apply yourself for when creating a podcast. If I'm able to accomplish this, then that means that this could be something so much greater. And so if the only thing that is like, the only thing that's stopping this from being something so much greater is me and my own pride, then maybe I should really let go of that. And maybe I should actually ask for help. Maybe I should find someone who is an expert at production. Maybe I should ask others and crowdsource, like, what do you think I should be doing? And maybe I should have a different caliber of guests on my show. And maybe they will be more willing to actually be on my show if I'm vulnerable and honest, not only with them, but also with myself. So that's part of the reason why we stopped the podcast. And I'm not going to say that I came to this realization overnight. Like, I didn't just stop the podcast and then a week later I was like, bam, I got all the answers. It did take me some time in reflection. So we stopped the podcast. I haven't put out an episode probably since like December or January. And in between that time until now, there were a lot of different reasons. There were a lot of different catalysts for the change in not only who I am and how I want to continue to grow, but also like how I want to show up. And one of those things that you'll hear me talk a lot about is this season is Creators Escape. So in February, I went to Creators Escape. And remember, I told you guys that the last episode of Hardwick Soft Life that I put out was probably like December or January. And honestly, if you go back and listen to it, like, it sounds half-assed. Like, I sound tired. I didn't know what I was going to go into the studio and talk about. Like, I just went and talked and then I just mashed it together and threw it out there. And I'm not very proud of that, but that's just, it is what it is. And I'm not going to get rid of it either, because I feel like when you first start something, whether it be a podcast, whether it be you're an athlete and you're trying out a new sport, whether, you're a person who wants to learn how to sing or play an instrument, the first time that you ever do it is just not going to be right anyways. It's not going to be perfect. So we're just going to leave the episodes as they are for anyone who's new listening to go back and listen to. But I I just put something together and I threw it out there. And then I just didn't do another podcast the following 2 weeks after that, and the following 2 weeks after that. And then Creators Escape happened in February of 2025. And Creators Escape, shout out to Mr. Justin Story himself, by the way. Justin is a really, really good friend of mine, young guy who is, he's actually one of the guests on the podcast this season, but he put Creators Escape. He's one of my favorite digital storytellers, and his vision was for it to be an escape or kind of a retreat for those of us who are more artistically inclined and who are creatives and who are either on a really, really large platform or even just starting out. And so it was a really nice event that he put together in Orlando, and I'm honored that I was a part of it. So he invited me to be one of the panelists, which I gladly said yes to. I would love to be, one of the panelists for it. But I also felt like, what am I going to say? I have a podcast that's like kind of up in the air, and I'm a realtor. I don't really know how creative that is. And I'm supposed to be giving these people advice for who to be, how to be, and how to continue growing, and how to not only continue growing, but also share it with the world in a creative way. And how do they balance creativity with their work life? And I wasn't even doing it right. Like, how can I get on a stage and honestly and wholly tell people how they should go about these things when I'm not doing such a great job? So when you are forced to rise to the occasion, you do, right? And being invited to Creators Escape was like, it was that fire in my ass that I needed a little bit. So I go to Creators Escape, and I knew that it was going to be an amazing thing. Like, I didn't underestimate Justin's ability to put together a really great event. But I don't think I was expecting exactly what I received at Creators Escape. So just to give you guys some context, all of us that were panelists, we all got to stay under the same roof in a shared house. And so I thought that that was really awesome because we all got to know each other before the actual event. So that means that you're putting all egos aside. It gives you room to actually be like for real. My husband didn't go with me to Creators Escape, even though that meant like I was going to be away from him a few days, because, and Ryan is really awesome. He's also one of my guests, but Ryan was really big on me going to this event and fully immersing myself into the experience, right? Like, if you have, someone with you, or if you're like staying in a separate like house, all of those things can ultimately affect the final effect, right? So I 100% drove all the way to Orlando, was excited to be a panelist, didn't know what I was going to talk about exactly. I knew what my topics were, but I didn't know exactly what I was going to talk about. And I didn't know exactly what to expect, but I went in with an open heart and an open mind. And I was like, okay, well, I'm going to go and just be in a creative space. And what I got was so rewarding. First and foremost, like, I've never seen that many Black creatives in one place in my whole life. And granted, like, I'm not saying it doesn't exist, those spaces, because obviously, like, there are bigger cities in different states that have, events like that regularly. But I'm saying that I've never gone to anything like that. Unfortunately, and I don't want to say unfortunately, but like in Tampa, there's just not a lot of creative spaces in Tampa. Like, you can find them, but there's just not a ton of them. I go to Orlando, I stay in the shared house, and I start getting to know people. I'm staying under the same roof as Giovonnie Samuels, who's also going to be a guest on this season. And I can't wait for you guys to hear her story. And now, Giovonnie Samuels was on All That. She's been on The Sweet Life of Zach and Cody. She is someone that myself and my brother also watched on TV. And I couldn't believe I was in the same house as her. I'm like, I have imposter syndrome to the extreme. Like, what am I doing staying at this house, being on the same panel as this person that I watched on TV? But she was super awesome. And she asked me, what did I do? Like, what was my creative medium? And like, what was I doing? And I told her, oh, I'm a podcaster, and I'm saying this with like the ultimate, like, I had secondhand embarrassment saying that I was a podcaster, because I knew that if she went and looked up Hard Way Soft Life, the podcast, she probably would be like, okay, like, this girl looks like she just films this thing of her talking. The qualities are right. So I already knew, like, I'm like, damn, like I'm like down here and these people are up here. So she asked me, what did I do? I told her my podcast. And at first I wasn't so confident about it. And then she asked me for more detail about the podcast. She asked for the name of it. She asked me where can she find it. She asked me what the podcast was about. And I explained to her, I was like, yeah, the podcast is called Hard Way Soft Life. The podcast, I told her about Ryan. I told her about how it was an interracial relationship. I told her that although the theory has, a certain stigma behind it, I promise you, I am not trying to teach you how to find a white husband who is rich. Like, that's not the whole deal. I told her that obviously Hard Way Soft Life delves into the life of us, brown and black women, or even just, people in general, but mainly brown and black women, and how we feel like in order for us to deserve a soft life, every hair has to be in place, all the edges got to be laid. Like, we have to show up, fully ready. And that's not true, right? Like, that could be further from the truth. That couldn't be further from the truth. We don't have to do anything to deserve a soft life. And just talking about like being able to accept the good things and the soft things that life has to offer after we've gone through chaos, after we've gone through struggle. So I shared all of this with Giovonnie, and she's like, wow, that sounds great. And I looked at her and I said, honestly, like, I don't even know what I'm about to do with this podcast. I'm like, I'm tired. I'm burnt out. And she said, well, why are you tired? And so this is the first time I was saying this out loud, but I told her, I said, girl, I'm tired because I'm the producer, I'm the camera person, the editor, the marketing team, I'm everything. And she looked at me in the way that Giovonnie will look at you sideways and was like, girl, why are you doing all that? And I'm like, I don't really know. Like, honestly, I want to save money. And, maybe one day if this pops off. And she's like, yeah, but it's not going to pop off if you're doing everything. And honestly, like, it sparked that thought in me. I was like, you know what? She's right. She's right. Like, I was doing pretty well, but I do see that some of my numbers are declining. It's declining because of my performance. My performance is declining because I'm trying to do 20 million things under the sun and I'm burnt out. She's right. She goes, girl, you could hire anybody off of Fiverr, off of, whatever. And I'm like, yeah, I don't really want to do that. Right. Like, I don't want to just hire just anybody to help me out. But okay, I'm going to figure it out. And we left that conversation alone. And we talked about other things and I got to know Giovonnie and she was awesome. And she told me, she said, hey, I like what you're doing. I'd love to be a guest on your podcast. I talked earlier about how creators escape lit a fire under my eyes. Giovonnie Samuels, someone who I watched on TV, is telling me that they want to be on my podcast. Me, I'm Melissa from Tampa, Florida. Like, I'm, and I don't want to say that I think I'm nobody, but, I'm like, in the grand scheme of life, like, how significant am I really, right? This girl wants to be on my podcast. Oh, I got to come correct. I can't show up with my little rinky-dink camera and put it in a corner and just say, okay, we're going to sit on the couch and we're going to just talk. So when she said this to me, it made me think, okay, how am I going to really get my podcast going? But not only that, like, how am I going to be like for real and secure not only her as a guest, but maybe if I can secure her as a guest, that means I can secure other people as a guest. So we had a great night and we had dinner with a lot of our VIP guests, and they were just really excited to meet us, the panelists, the night before Creators Escape. I think Justin was really intentional about how he set up the landscape for the event. We had a dinner with the guests. Well, we had a dinner with the people who were VIP guests. And at that dinner, I got to meet, stylist Jay Bolin, which if you don't know him, I don't know what rock you live under. I didn't know him. I'll be honest. I didn't know who he was, honestly. But if you don't know who he is, you must be living under a rock. Stylist Jay Bolin styles people like Morris Chestnut, Michelle Williams of Destiny's Child, like a lot more famous names that I can even think of. But he was at that table as a panelist. Giovonnie was at that table as a panelist. I'm sitting at that table as a panelist. And there are guests who are asking us questions about our artistry, our creativity, Where do we get inspiration from? What our normal life looks like? What word are we taking into this new season of our life? And these are all things that I don't think about on the regular. And I don't think I'm even in an environment really regularly that would produce that kind of thought, right? I'm a realtor. That's my 9 to 5. Like, I sell people homes. There's not much room to be thinking about your creative expression and to be vulnerable with yourself. I mean, it's a grind. It's hustle grind. But yeah, like 9 times out of 10, I'm probably like the only creative, or there is one other person who's a creative, which actually my friend, shout out to Carlea. My friend Carlea, she's a creative and we're in the same business. But yeah, like there's just not a lot of people like myself that think like me or other creatives in the environments that I'm placed in. And no shade to anybody that I work with, or, it's just a very different culture. It's just business. So, with that being said, I sat at that dinner and I had a lot of things going through my mind, right? I've already had the previous conversation with Giovonnie at the house about like, why am I doing all of the jobs and wearing all of the hats? We now walk into this dinner. I see these people that are on a much higher like scale than I am sitting with me. They're my peers now. And then we've got guests who are like inspired by us, who in turn are actually inspiring me by their questions. So all of that, and the next day we go to Creators Escape, right? Where it's supposed to happen. Like, we're supposed to be on our panel. We're supposed to be asking, answering all these questions that are being asked to us. And the experience was like no other. Like, I keep saying that, but I guess let me get into detail here. So Creators Escape, first of all, everybody looked beautiful, moisturized, hair was natural. Like, it was gorgeous. It was like a bunch of us, it was a lot of Black creatives. We did have one panelist, I think he was from London. He was really cool. I can't remember his name, but there was a joke that I kept making. I was like, oh, well, I guess you're our DEI hire, for the day. And we started off the day in prayer. And everybody there was very much rooted in their faith, which, I'm not the most deeply Christian person that there is, or deeply religious person, but I would say, I do have like Christian beliefs, right? I mean, I feel like a lot of people out there are not like deeply rooted in religion, but do, obviously you believe like you're going to be a good person, you want to follow the 10 Commandments, like all of that. And so, yeah, like we started off in prayer, and the way that prayer started, it wasn't just like your run of the mill, like, okay, well, thank you, Lord, bless us, please. It was, it was moving. And not only was it moving prayer, that we were, it not only was the prayer like very moving, but then we had everyone chiming in, with their thank you, Lords, and yes, Lords for the day. And I've never experienced that feeling before. It was just crazy. And the gentleman who I told you was our DEI hire, I'm glad he said it before I did. He was like, I've never felt anything like this before. And I'm like, yeah, this is a lot, but a lot in all of the best ways possible. And then we went on stage and we each did our panels. I got to talk about the importance of pivoting, and how pivoting and, reframing your focus isn't failure. And I think that while I was on that stage talking about that topic, while I'm telling other people these things, I think that those were words that I needed to hear. So something that my husband always says is that sometimes the advice that we give out is the advice that we need to hear the most. And while I'm telling everyone how to reframe and how pivoting, whether it be in the workplace, whether it be in the creative industry, whether it be, just in life in general, isn't a failure, I started to really absorb what I was saying. We talked about real estate, and business, and I talked about, the importance of being business savvy. And I realized like that part of the conversation really wasn't feeding my soul and my spirit. What I felt most ignited talking about was introducing myself as a podcaster first. And so, yeah, I absorbed all of those things. I absorbed the prayer. I absorbed the words that were being given by all of my peers that day, who have been creating, like I said, on a much major scale than I am. And I started to believe it. not only was I just hearing it, but I was believing it. I was like, you know what? Like, it's like you drinking the Kool-Aid, right? I'm like, you know what? If I'm here, then that means I deserve to be here. And if I deserve to be here, well, nobody in this room is greater than the other one, right? Like, I'm just as worthy as anyone else. And everyone here believes in my vision, in my podcast, in the message that I have to share with the world, in my story. Everyone was so, I've never, you live your life and you don't really feel like your life is that compelling, or at least I do. I feel like, hey, like I might have lived a hard life, but that's just the cards that were dealt, for me. That was just the hand I was dealt. And me, finessing it and changing it up as the game goes on, that's just what I've had to do to survive. So for me, I wouldn't say that, oh, it's just this remarkable thing. It doesn't feel remarkable until I tell someone and they're looking back at me and they go, oh my goodness, I can't believe you went through that. You should share more. And so I'm sitting there and all these people are telling me, Melissa, your podcast idea, the vision is there. You got to do it. You should really do it. So I'm like, okay, I think I'm going to do it. So we finished the day out, and Pastor Takoa, who is also going to be a guest on this season of the podcast, she gave a prayer and some words that really just lifted me. She said that sometimes you are going to be afraid to do something because you are going to be the first to do it. And that should not deter you. Of course, she said it a lot more eloquently than what I've said it. And I thought back to my life and people around me, my family, or how I was brought up, or even people I work around. And even myself, I said, I thought to myself, I've suppressed certain parts of me and who I am because of fear, right? It's a fear-based mentality. And sometimes you just have to literally just not be afraid, because you're going to be the first to do something. And so and I don't want to make it sound like I have these ideas of grandeur and I'm, making myself sound bigger than what I am. But my story, my life, what I went through, I don't know who else it could help. So if it's going to be that I'm the first person to share all of this, then that's just what I have to do, whether I'm scared or not. And so I was just really moved. By the time Creators Escape finished, I got in my car. I got in my car and I started crying. So for those of you guys who don't know, I'm a crier. I cry at least 3 to 4 times a day. And the joke that my husband and I have is that when we walk into places and my makeup is running down my face, and I'm crying, people are going to think that Ryan has done something to mistreat me, but he hasn't. I'm just a crier. If I'm expressing emotion or something vulnerable, I'm going to cry, because it's actually very difficult for me to do. It's difficult for me to do because, I feel like that's a part of myself that I always shut down. When you are trying to be strong, you don't have time for feelings. You don't have time to cry. You just keep moving forward. So I got in my car and I started crying on the way back from Creators Escape. And I call my husband. I call Ryan on the way, and I'm telling Ryan, wow, that was the most moving experience I could have ever experienced. And I felt really good being here, but I also feel like I'm not living in my truth. I feel like I'm not living at my best potential. I feel like I'm not in spaces where my expression is actually welcomed and honored and encouraged. I feel like maybe I'm not being true to myself, even down to what I was wearing that day, honestly. I wore what I thought other people would have expected a person like me to wear. Now, what do I think other people think of me as a person? I don't know, right? Nor should it really be my business. But I wore what I thought was acceptable. I wore a nice white outfit, very clean cut, blazer, makeup done to the nines, hair. My hair was something I struggled with, honestly, because I don't normally wear braids. I normally wear my hair very nice and sleek and long and 22 inches minimum to perfection. And I've been wearing braids because I told myself that this year I was going to, embrace my natural hair, and I'm starting from scratch growing it out for the 20th time. And this time we're actually going to grow it out. But I say all that to say that, I did what I thought. I went in there portraying what I thought would have been expected of me, and came out with a completely different outlook. So I got in the car, I'm crying, I'm telling Ryan all about the experience. And my husband is on the other end. He's in Tampa, Florida. He's panicking. He doesn't know what is going on. He's Do we need to move? Do we need to be where the Black creative people are? What do I need to do? Do we need to sell the house, to make extra money for that? Like, are you unhappy? I don't want my wife to be unhappy. He is panicking, but kudos to Ryan because he is handling it like a champ and he's just talking me through it. And I tell him, I really don't know what I need. I don't know what I need to do, but I do think that I need to be true to myself. I don't think that I should be putting all my ducks in a row or all my eggs in one basket where I feel like it's the safest. I'm a realtor, and I know I'm putting a lot of energy in that, but I do feel like, with your support, if it's okay, can I just step away from that and really, really jump into my creative, really just jump into my creative sauce, really get into my podcasting. And so Ryan was like, whatever we got to do, like, I just want you to be happy. And I feel like you're not happy. And I'm like, yeah, I just don't think I've been happy with myself. It's not a you thing. It's not a personal thing, whatever. So I park my car. I'm finally at the house, the shared home where we're staying. And the first person I see is Delano A. Johnson. Now, Delano A. Johnson was also part of the Creator's Escape. He's most known for being the smoothest voice on Clubhouse. And I never met him before this, but he is awesome people. And he's a New Yorker originally. And I think he lived in New York all the way up until 15 months ago, he said. And so he's a guy that he's going to give it to you like straight, no chaser, no fluff, very, very straightforward kind of person. And those are my favorite type of people, honestly, because I feel like I'm like that. And I feel like you always know where you stand with people like that. And so he sees me and I tell him, he sees me crying. Obviously, I'm going to explain why I'm crying, right? And I'm like, yeah, I just got off the phone with my husband, but he didn't say anything bad. Wow, like, how do you feel after Creator's Escape? I'm just really moved by everything that happened. And he was like, yeah, that's really good. And I go, I don't know about my podcast. I don't know how I'm going to continue it, but I know I have to continue it. And he's like, yeah, you really should. And so I was feeling self-doubt, right? And I also was feeling kind of crazy because can you imagine? We just left something so positive. We left something so great. And I gave all these wonderful words to people of advice. And we leave, and not even 30 minutes later, I'm crying like I'm a hot mess. I'm like, this guy doesn't know me from a can of paint. He's going to be like, what is wrong with this girl? Like, why is she crying like this? Why was she crying, talking to her husband about this? So I'm explaining everything, and I'm also trying to be mindful. I'm like, he doesn't know me that well. One, I don't want you to think I'm insane, but two, I don't want you to think like my husband's not supportive. He's super supportive. I'm unhappy because I'm unhappy, not because anyone's made me unhappy. And that also, like, that self-talk is also something I've been realizing. I think way too much about what the other person is thinking. Like, that in itself is insane. To be having a dialogue where you're trying to reconcile how you feel and also explain to someone how you feel, but in that explanation also trying to figure out what they feel about how you feel and how they're interpreting it. Like, that is wild. But that's what I was doing in that moment. And Delano gave me he inspired me. And not only did he inspire me, he encouraged me. He said, listen, Melissa, your husband sounds like a great guy. And I'm like, oh my God, like he is, I'm like crying and sniffling. And I'm like, he is such a great guy. And he's like, and he sounds like he really wants to support you, but you got to figure out what you want to do. And I'm like, you're right. I got to figure out what I want to do. And then he's like, and then you just got to do it. I'm like, you're right. I just got to execute. Okay. He's giving it to me in steps, right? And then he tells me, listen, Melissa, he goes, you're a person that you can make $1 million in New York. He's like, you know how hard it is for somebody to make $1 million in New York? That means that you got to sell to other New Yorkers. And other New Yorkers are not buying what you're selling. They don't even have time to hear about what you're selling. He's like, but you got it. You got the sauce. You can do it. Your story, 1 in a million. You should share it. You should be authentic with yourself. And that made me feel really good. Someone who he doesn't really know me. I just met him. It was really encouraging, and someone who is very successful, wildly successful, in my opinion. Well, I guess not even in my opinion. He's wildly successful. Telling me that, oh, you better believe I'm going to get it started. We're going to get it popping. And that's what I did. I spent the rest of my time at Creator's Escape having a great time with my housemates for the time that we were there. We ate food, we sang songs, we watched music videos, we talked about childhood stories. We drank a little champagne because, I love a little champagne, some Prosecco, some Brut, which I'm on a really weird diet right now. I'm trying to lay off of it, but, little bubbles ain't never hurt nobody. And I came home really excited and really amped up. So basically, that's what re-sparked my inspiration to come back and reboot Hardwig Soft Life. I came back home, and I think a week or so later, I actually got invited by Imani to an event that he was doing out here in Tampa. So a huge shout out to Imani and Sabrina. This season of Hardwig Soft Life, the podcast, would not be as aesthetically pleasing, as cohesive, just as good in general, because they've taken a lot of the weight off of my shoulders for me to really think about what I want to produce and how I would like to produce it. It just wouldn't be what it is without Sabrina and Imani over at Blackstock Footage. Blackstock Footage is doing the Lord's work with Hardwig Soft Life. But I don't want to reduce them to just doing the camera and the editing work. Because Blackstock Footage is a phenomenal company. So I used to work in human resources in my past life. And I can remember going onto websites for different jobs that I was going to interview for, perhaps, or just even companies that I did already work for. And I can remember going on the website and never seeing anybody who looked like me on the website. A lot of those websites and a lot of the videos that they use for training purposes at any job, they use stock footage. Stock footage is very normal in those industries. If you don't have actual, they're not going to do an actual photo shoot, right? If you work for a company, they might sometimes, but for the most part, they're going to just go online and they're going to look for stock footage. A lot of the time in those pictures, you just don't see a lot of brown or black people. It's just by design. You just don't. You might see one or two and then an Asian person sprinkled in, but that's about it. Blackstock Footage is a company that actually is filling in the gaps where there are gaps when it comes to stock footage. The whole thing it's exactly what it is. It's black stock footage. You're able to go on the website and you're able to find Black people in different settings that you probably wouldn't even think of, but you may need if you need some stock footage. One of the best examples of I guess a random thing, right, that you wouldn't think that you want footage of a Black person for, or you wouldn't need it, is an example that Sabrina gave me not too long ago, and it was a Black equestrian. I really, when I hear the word cowboy, I don't really think a Black person, right? But what if I needed to make a website and I needed to show a representation, and let's say this website was about cowboys? Well, there are different people who are baby cowboys. So now I need a picture of a Black equestrian, someone who is riding a horse or someone who deals on a farm. Or where would I find something like that? I need to go to blackstockfootage.io. I think that their concept for the company is actually a phenomenal one. And with Hardwig Soft Life, any sponsorships that I do acquire, I don't want it to be a sponsorship just for it being a sponsorship. I want it to be something that aligns with my brand and something that Hardwig Soft Life can align with, whomever else's brand. And I feel like we have a really great, marriage here with Blackstock Footage. So I'm very grateful to Sabrina and Imani. Sabrina puts up with my craziness a lot, but kudos to her, and I couldn't do this without her. So I say all this to say that we do have a sponsor. I say all this to say that I do have help this season. And let me rewind just a little bit, because I know that we went, on a tangent talking about Blackstock Footage. But I came back from Orlando and I got invited by Imani and Sabrina, for an event that they were throwing. And it was a creatives kind of event. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to go to this. I'm really amped. And I think when I'm here, I think I'm going to ask them if they wouldn't mind, helping me out a little bit with the camera stuff, because it's just not my steez and they have amazing work. By this point, I had already confirmed with Giovonnie that she would be a guest on my show. I had already set up, all of the trip stuff with my husband. He was like, yeah, let's go to Atlanta. Let's just go interview some people. And all I needed was someone to come help me with filming this whole experience. So I go to the event and I'm excited to see Imani. I'm excited to see Sabrina. And I tell them, hey, I think I have a really, really, really great opportunity for the two of us. I want to share it with you guys. I was super excited. I was smiling from ear to ear. Like I looked like a lunatic probably when I pulled up to the scene. But it was just because I was so hyped. I was so amped to tell them what I had in mind. My only fear was that they would say, hey, we're really busy. We can't do it. Or that they would just be like, just not into it at all. Right. And I have a fear of rejection, which I feel like who doesn't have a fear of rejection, right? It's not that uncommon. But I think my fear of rejection is like, it's kind of extreme to the point where I won't, and that goes also with like my pride, right? Like I probably won't ask for help because I don't want people to say no. I'm afraid they're going to say no. I'm afraid, just fear. So anyways, they seemed really excited and we did talk about it, not at great length, but we did talk about it. And yeah, like they actually agreed. They actually liked what I had going on. And so we packed up our bags and Sabrina and I went to Atlanta and we interviewed a few people. And when I saw the work that was being produced, I was like, wow, like I should have done this a lot sooner. I was in my own way. Like I could have done this months ago. I also don't think that I was in a space months before though to really receive. I think I needed to go to Creators Escape. Like that was the catalyst for change for me. I also with the podcast, and the podcast is kind of like a mirror to my life, right? Like this is me being really, really real on camera. This is me being really, really real and vulnerable with everybody. It's a mirror to my life. I think I was telling people about being healed and healing because I felt like I was healed and healing. And I realized very quickly, like, no, like you're not. So in the same breath that I'm like learning to ask for help, that Sabrina and I are going on trips to like interview all of our, guests, I'm also being really reflective and saying hard way self life is about being soft. It's about healing after trauma. It's about being the best you that you can be. But while I'm telling other people how to be the best them that they can be, am I really being the best Melissa that Melissa can be? And I can't preach what I don't practice. So while all this is happening and I'm being really reflective, I decided that the best thing for me to do would be to go ahead and start therapy. So that's been an adventure. I'm not going to lie and be like, oh, I'm healed. I mean, even though in my mind, I feel like I'm healed. Like, but I have an amazing therapist and we have been unpacking a lot and it's been helping me to make strides in my personal life, but also in my creative life. I'm learning to be really open and honest, which is what this podcast is all about and what the original idea and the original motive and intent for it was. I think that by the time I hit my third episode, I feel like I was kind of performing being healed. And I wasn't like intentionally, trying to like lie to anybody, right? It's more of a lot of it is generational. There's just a lot of stuff to unpack here. But by the time I hit my third episode, obviously I wasn't balancing my life well. I wasn't balancing my work life. I wasn't balancing my creative life. I wasn't balancing the podcast. I just wasn't balancing anything. And I was still pushing myself to, okay, I got to show up. I got to do this podcast. I got to wear all the million hats and the episodes got to be good. And it got to a point where I was like talking about stuff, but I didn't really feel like, I didn't feel like it was good. It just was just to fill space, just to say I did it. And so there's that portion of it. But then there's also, I'm a millennial. And I think that growing up in the wake of social media, like if I want to get really existential about it and, philosophical, growing up in the wake of social media, millennials learn to package and polish and pretty things up really well, right? We grew up when YouTube started, and YouTube is now what it is, right? We've got a bunch of creators, and there's like super cool editing you can do, and you have to like make sure everything is pretty and aesthetically pleasing, and even the way we decorate our homes, right? Like we like that grayish kind of look, the neutrals, everything's got to be pristine and perfect. And millennials, we didn't really learn from the generation before us that it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay not to be curated. It's okay not to be artisanal. Um, it doesn't have to be perfect. We were taught to be the opposite. We were taught to be polished and pretty and packaged. And I think it gives, honestly, it really gives. Yeah, you could be traumatized, but make it cute. You could be healing, but make it pretty. And I feel like that's what I was doing. Like I felt like because I was in the safest place in my life that I've ever been, which is not saying a lot anyways, but I am in a really good spot and I am stable. I'm in the most stable place I've ever been in my life. That doesn't mean that you're healed. That just means that you're more stable from chaos. So while I'm telling other people, oh, you got to heal the soft life era, I'm not practicing it. Soft life is a lot deeper than I was not doing the inner work. Soft life is a lot deeper than just getting my nails done every 2 weeks. It's a lot deeper than going to get a facial once a month. It's a lot deeper than, oh, I'm going to have lunch with the girls, and if something doesn't serve me, I'm just going to rid it of my life. There's a lot more work that goes into soft life. Soft life is not easy. Soft life is not soft. Soft life is hard. So although my intention was to really illustrate all that to people by way of podcast, I don't think that I was actively practicing it in the best way. So this whole reboot has been a lot of reflection. It has been a lot of forgiveness to myself. It has been a lot of unpacking the unpretty things that I like to keep in a nice little suitcase. And it has been holding myself accountable. Also learning things that I didn't think I was capable of learning, like the art of delegation, the art of sharing, the art of trusting other people with my vision in order to make a much better vision than maybe I by myself had envisioned. So it has been a labor of love. It has been a lesson in life. And yeah, like that's what we have to look forward to in season 2. Super grateful again for Black Stock Footage, for all that they've been doing for me. Because honestly, without them, I wouldn't be able to bring this to life. But it took a lot of self-reflection to get to this point. So if you're still at this point in the podcast, I'm going to thank you again just for continuing to rock with me. And I kind of just want to tell you guys, like this season, I'm thrilled actually this season. Like the last time I kind of was just piecemealing things together. I was just trying to figure out and muddle through how to do a podcast, right? And I feel like I went through that beginning stage, like I told you earlier today when we were like talking about trying a new sport or trying a new instrument, learning to play an instrument or anything new that you're doing. The execution is just it's never perfect, right? So I feel like it was necessary for me to go through those real ghetto stages at the beginning of this podcast, and we've made it through. And so this season, oh my God, this season is going to be so lit. Aside from Black Stock Footage helping me out, y'all, right? There's my sponsorship. And by the way, there are any companies that want to work with me, sync up with me. Let's go ahead and talk and see if it aligns on both ends. But my guest list, out of this world, like what? Let me cook. My guest list is phenomenal. I am so proud of the people that I've gotten to talk to. I'm proud of myself for getting to talk to them. And I'm excited at the fact that a lot of these people even thought it was worth it to like sit down on the couch and talk to little old me. So just to give you a quick little rundown, because I know I'm like hyping it up, but I'm really excited. Like that's just how hyped I am right now. To give you a quick rundown, I mean, actually, I'm lying. We're not going to make it quick. I don't know. I learned in therapy that I be lying a lot, right? Like when people ask me like, oh, how are you doing? I'm like, oh, I'm good. I'm great. Everything is wonderful. And then I'm like, no, let me catch myself. I'm lying. So I'm not going to give you a quick rundown. It is going to be long winded because it deserves to be long winded. But some of the guests that we have on the podcast, we've got Giovonnie Samuels, who I mentioned earlier, and she was on All That. She was on The Sweet Life of Zach and Cody. She was on one of the Bring It On movies. She was on Freedom Writers. She's a legend, icon, love her. And the fact of the matter is she's actually amazing in person too. I'm just thrilled that I even know her as a person. We got to talk to Monique Escarillo. Monique is like the Black Kris Jenner, but without all like the weird like demon Illuminati stuff that the Kardashian people got going on. She has 4 amazing kids. One of them who I've gotten to meet, her name is Bali. But she's the momager to all 4 of her kids, and they are all social media personalities. They're on TikTok, they're on Twitch. And although her kids are very well known, like Brooklyn Frost, Deshae Frost, Amari Frost, we know Bali. Although all of her kids are really well known, I got to really get to know Monique. So that's an episode I can't wait for you guys to listen to. We got to talk to Tracy Baker Simmons. We get to talk to her this season. I'm super amped for that. So Tracy Baker Simmons is actually a woman who worked for Bravo at one point. When I met her, she was working for Bravo. She is a pioneer in reality TV, and she actually created Being Bobby Brown. So like, yeah, like the fact that she's sitting with me is phenomenal. Who else? Who else are we talking to this season? We get to talk to my husband. We get to talk to Ryan. And I can't wait for you guys to all meet Ryan. I feel like a lot of people know me. I'm the extroverted one. But not a lot of people get to know my husband. And honestly, even if you do meet him, you really don't know who he is until like the 4th or 5th time that you're around him. A lot of people will say he's shy, but he's not shy. That man is selectively social. When I met him, I thought that he talked a lot. But that's just because he liked me. So I can't wait for that interview. But that's just a quick sneak peek of some of the people that we get to interview this season. And so, like I said, I mean, I don't even want to really, I've been calling it a season 2. And I say that because I kind of want to separate the first few episodes from what we're doing right now. And the first few episodes will stay up as is because I feel like without that background knowledge of who I am and some of the trauma that I went through and some of the things that I've had to triumph over, you don't really get the full picture for what hard-wig soft life is to me and how it correlates. But that's just a little peek of who we're gonna be talking to. Now, what we will be talking about, we will be talking about motherhood. You know, that's a really big thing for me. Ryan and I actually put a pause on deciding to be parents this year in 2025. I felt like there were still a lot of things that I wanted to accomplish, and I just feel like you really have to be in the right space to have a baby. I'm very excited to do it, but you know, you just got to be ready. And I know that you're never really ready, but you got to be ready. And I also wanted to be in therapy, and I found my therapist. And I didn't even tell you guys how I found my therapist. I found my therapist at Creators Escape. Creators Escape is amazing. We got to interview Justin's story, and I can't wait for you guys to see his episode because he is a very, very talented and intelligent young man. But yeah, I met my therapist at Creators Escape. And so I kept telling myself, I don't want to start trying for a baby unless I'm already in therapy and already starting that process. So yeah, like we are going to talk about mental health. We're going to talk about, let me get back to what I was talking about because I keep jumping, but we're going to talk about mental health. We're going to talk about motherhood. Like I was saying, we're going to talk about legacy, reinvention. A lot of these people have had to reinvent themselves in their life. And how did they go about it? We'll talk about pivoting. We're just going to talk about a lot of really, really useful things. I think they're useful for everybody out there listening. And I can't wait to share season 2 with everyone. Thank you all for watching or listening, whatever medium you're using. Thank you so much for tuning in. With that being said, I'm going to close out. My name is Melissa L. Atkinson, and you can find me on TikTok. You can find me on Instagram. You can find me on YouTube. You can find me anywhere, and my username will be at Melissa Laboriel. And Laboriel is spelled like labor, and it ends in IEL. That's it. Welcome to season 2, y'all. Don't call it a comeback.